This program airs statewide on California Public Television and is a California's Gold classic. Hi, I'm Huell, and here we are playing tourist on Fisherman's Wharf here in San Francisco. It is a beautiful afternoon, and right out there in the bay sits what has to be one of the most recognizable landmarks anywhere in the world. Now, we all know it right away. That's Alcatraz, a place which over the years has earned the nickname The Rock, because that prison was literally built on top of a rock out in the middle of the bay. Now, that kind of sets the stage for what this whole adventure is about, because we're getting ready to visit some other rocks in the water here in our state. Rocks that are full of color and history and all kinds of interesting stories, even though they're not as well known as Alcatraz. So if you're curious as to where we're going to go and what rocks in the water we're going to find, as always, you're invited to come along with us. This one ought to be fun as we continue our search together for California's gold. It's a great way to spend an afternoon. And there we were on a beautiful afternoon in search of our first rock in the water. Now, the search took us to Lake Tahoe, one of the most spectacular and historic places in all of California. Our destination was on the southwest side of the lake, in Emerald Bay. Okay, we have arrived at our first stop here in Emerald Bay, and Tom, this home, Vikings home, is one of the most popular destinations when people come to Lake Tahoe, isn't it?
It is a focal point here at Emerald Bay. This home was built in 1929 by Mrs. Laura Josephine Knight. She had over 200 craftsmen come over in the summer of 1929 and construct this home. A lot of the stonework was quarried from just behind the home here. All the lumber came from Hobart Mills up in Truckee by steamer down on the bay and into the bay here and was unloaded on site.
Now, wasn't it supposed to look like a Scandinavian home?
Yes, Mrs. Knight was a worldwide traveler. She went to the Scandinavian countries of Norway, Finland, and Sweden. And her nephew, Leonard Paul May, they took photographs of ancient churches and castles and recreated the exact scenes here.
So it was her attempt at recreating a true Vikings home.
Correct, and it's called the finest example of Scandinavian architecture in the Western Hemisphere.
Well, it may be the finest example of Scandinavian architecture in the Western Hemisphere, but as you know, we do things a little differently on our adventures. We are not here to see the Vikings home. We are here to visit that big old rock in the water, and that's where we're heading next, right?
Yeah, that's Fannette Island. It's the only island here on Lake Tahoe.
All right, you've got our interest peaked. That's the only island on Lake Tahoe, and it's actually connected with Vikings home, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Mrs. Knight, as one of the things she did was she built a 16 by 16 stone tea house out there where she'd go out in the afternoon and have tea on the island.
And part of it's still up there.
And part of it, we're going to take a look at that, yes.
Good, among other things. The adventure continues. We're heading out to the only island in Lake Tahoe. Now, why is there only one island in Lake Tahoe?
Well, the average depth of Lake Tahoe is about 900 feet, the deepest point 1,645 feet. Here in Emerald Bay, when the glacier came through, you can see the sides of the bay itself were formed by glaciers, and the glacier overrid this really solid, resistant piece of granite that was right here in the middle of the bay.
So when the glacier came through, it just went up and over.
Up and over and scoured out around the sides of this rock outcrop and didn't actually remove it.
We're here.
We're here.
We're on shore. Now, how do we get up to the top?
Well,
Guess we just follow these people.
When she had this stone, the tea house built up there, she actually built a ramp on the east side of the island where they hauled the stonework up. But she also had some of her gardeners and people that worked for it built a stone stairway up here that we're going to follow. Parts of that stone stairway are still visible today.
So this is the original stone stairway that was built in?
Would have been 1930.
Well, I bet the guys who were sent out here to pull all this stone up weren't real excited about that, were they?
I'm sure it was probably pretty hard work for them.
All right, we're almost here.
The last steep section.
The last steep section before we get to the top. And here's the tea house right over here.
Right at the top of the island.
All right, there's the famous tea house.
Right at
or
the top.
what's left of it. Did it always,
well, originally,
didn't it used to have a roof?
Originally this tea house had a roof, windows, a door, table and chairs inside. But over the years, it's been vandalized a little bit and the wooden structures were burned, but now the stone structure still remains.
Boy, there's a lot of stone in this house.
Here we are on the inside of the tea house. At one time there was a roof over us right here. Windows, door. She had a table and 4 chairs that were in here.
Fireplace,
and a
working
fireplace.
And she would come up here and have tea?
Afternoon tea, yes.
Wow.
With her guests that were visiting her at the time.
And look at these views out here.
It's wonderful.
The views she had out her window are just spectacular.
And if you look out this window facing east, you can look out towards the entrance to the bay.
Oh, that's beautiful. So look how small that entrance is to come into Emerald Bay.
And she had an old boat called the Valkyrie, and the Valkyrie would bring her out here to the island. And in the evening time, she would go out in the bay and cruise on the lake. Sunset cruises were her favorite, and also full moon nights.
Yeah.
With the moonlight sparkling on the water was really popular with her.
Do you think they ever spent the night out here? Any of her nieces or nephews or grandchildren?
I would just knowing that, talking to people today, I think people are always kind of the same. And I know people now might like to stay out here if they could. And I'm sure that some of her guests probably spent the night out on this island.
It was built well. Where did all this come from?
Well, Mrs. Knight, when she had her home built in this tea house, had stonemasons that came to the property, and this stone was actually quarried from the cliffs behind the home. She called that her big backyard fence back there, that cliff, and all this rock came out by barge, and out this window the barges would pull up, and there was a lift, almost like an elevator, that could raise all that rock to this site.
Because this is heavy rock.
Oh yeah.
And it looks like different types of rock in here too.
Yeah, most of this is granite that was quarried back from behind her home.
It doesn't look like your traditional tea house, does it?
Well, her stonemasons kind of designed this to look almost like a castle from the pictures that they came back with from the Scandinavian countries. And if you look at the corners of the house, the rockwork is spiked up so that people driving on the highway that aren't familiar with this area think, oh look, there's the castle, when in fact her 38-room home is there tucked away in the trees on the shoreline.
They think this is it.
They look at this architecture and think that's the castle.
Well, this looks more like a turret of a castle than it does what you would think a traditional tea house would look like.
Yes, it does.
So that's a forgivable mistake people might make.
This structure is part of Emerald Bay State Park, and it's part of our historic buildings, and our intent is to keep it in this condition and in this shape for all generations to come.
Well, it's a neat place, and it is built on the only island in Lake Tahoe, a big stack of rocks in the water.
That describes it very nicely.
Now that's what you call rough seas. And for the good citizens of California who live up on our northern coast, up in the Eureka area, It's a pretty common occurrence. Now, because of these seas, to protect their harbor and to allow shipping to be able to come in and out, back in 1889 they started building these huge, long jetties. Jetties on either side of the entrance to Humboldt Bay. Problem is, no matter how big the rocks were and how many blocks of concrete they piled up to make the jetties, the high seas, the storms, would just keep coming along and washing them away. It was a constant battle, man against the sea. And to be honest with you, it seemed to be a losing proposition until 1972, when the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers utilized a new idea. Thousands of huge, strange-looking concrete shapes called dolos. And to get a close-up look at these dolos, these rocks in the water, we chose a calm day and hooked up with the U.S. Coast Guard in Humboldt Bay, who took us out to the jetties. This is amazing. Just a little bit back there, the water was perfectly calm, and now, even though you say this is a calm day, we're having to hold on.
Yeah, we are. This is an interesting phenomenon here on the West Coast, and this is kind of a unique channel in that it has a breaking bar.
Well, tell us what these are out here, what this is we're looking at.
Well, this is the south jetty of Humboldt Harbor and the breakwall, and they've put these what they call dolos in to break the impact of the waves as they hit the breakwall and keep it from washing it away.
Because you had problems in the past 100 years just keeping a breakwater intact, right?
Right, nothing was, I mean, they put large rocks and boulders out here, but nothing was really designed to dissipate the, you know, the full force of the wave when it hit them. So this is what they're designed to do. They kind of have a prickly pine kind of a characteristic to it, and as a wave hits it, it disseminates all of the power of the wave so that it doesn't drag all the material away.
Now, how crazy does it get out here in the wintertime?
Well, in the winter during a storm, it'll break over this all of the way, and not a good time to be out here at all.
So there's a lot of force going on here. Why here? I mean, I don't understand it.
Well, the coast of California is right on the edge of the continental shelf, and it's deep right offshore. Within just a half mile or so, you're in about 3,000 fathoms of water, or about 18,000 feet of water. And the Pacific Ocean is 3,000 miles across, so all of the storms and everything that are generated over the Pacific hit here with full force.
And you told us that we can't even go over there because it's just too dangerous to go over there, right?
Well, right now it's a northwesterly swell, so there's the south jetty's protected, the south side of the south jetty's protected, but the north side's exposed to northwesterly swell, so they're getting big surf over there, about 10 to 12 feet.
Good grief. Hold on.
Oh.
I got it. I don't want to go in. Look at this. Look at it breaking over there on a calm day.
On a calm day. Yeah, we'll have to invite you back to come back and get some footage in the winter.
I think I'm getting a good feel for it right now.
Yeah.
Well, now we've done it. We've gotten off the motor lifeboat and we have come. We're actually now walking on one of the jetties. This is the North Jetty, and we're visiting with Jack McKellar. Jack, you worked with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers for over 30 years out of the Eureka office. You know a lot about these jetties, and we're here to listen to some of your story.
Well, I'd like to, first of all, if I may, if we could look back towards this ring situation where the pickup is parked. That's a ring that was made specifically for the ring of a crane, the 4900 Manitowoc, which is capable of picking up 42 tons at 400 foot of boom with 80 foot of jib. It would set here and work over halfway out this way, setting these large dolos that weigh 42 tons apiece. They have 19.7 cubic yards of concrete in each one.
Each one of these is how much?
42 tons.
Good grief.
Yeah, the first ones we put in, these were 1972. The ones on the south jetty were first done in 1971.
Now, before that, I understand you tried everything and nothing worked.
Up to 100-ton blocks of stone were blocks of concrete that were built right on a set of waves, and they actually launched them to try to build a protection for these jetties. And until the dolo was used, you had to redo it about every 3 years, and they still have to maintain the dolo. The dolo is a French patent. A man by the name of Merrifield from South Africa invented it. But he didn't really invent it, so to speak. He copied it. It's a copy of a bone in the sheep's hind leg, and they look like a playing jack.
It's a strange looking grouping of the way they're all thrown together.
No, they're not thrown together. You got to be expert to do that.
What do you mean?
It's just like the guy running that boat out there. You got to know what you're looking at and where you're going to place that with the vertical fluke out. And
so you mean these aren't just thrown up here?
No. And in fact, we have a model, I don't know where it is now, of that whole placement, all those dolos over there. You got your boom angle and your compass azimuth right on the crane, and you set it as pre-planned.
So you mean this was supposed to be at this, like this, and
Absolutely.
this was supposed to be down here, and this is supposed to be...
Well, don't you see? You can see the grade. The tops of those dolos is the grade. That's a planned grade.
Now, how big do the waves get out here? How big have you seen them out here?
Well, right here, and this is a matter of judgment, knowing that these are so big, they're 15 feet each way. You judge that in terms of the sea. I've seen 40-foot plus seas out here, and that's what's in the design element of these structures, 40-foot waves.
Really?
Right.
So you've seen waves come up over this whole...
Oh, yes. I've seen them, well, actually, I've seen them move 25-ton stone that I know weighs that because I put them there, right over the top of these jetties, and the main storm comes right here down the channel. Southwest waves, southwest seas, that's the big sea you get. The biggest sea is a westerly coming right out of the west.
And it would hit these big rocks, these big stones you had here, and just jumble them around.
Yeah, I got pictures at home with one estimated weight 32 ton on that south jetty sitting right in the middle of those railroad tracks, or where they were railroad.
The water moved it.
Water moved it.
See, I don't think the average person, I know I didn't, have any sense of the power of the sea.
This is the very problem. This is the problem the Coast Guard faces every day in trying to keep people off here. I sit right there at the end of the jetty and talk to people, don't go out there. Tide's coming, going to change and come in by the time you get out there, and you get washed off. Oh no, we know how to take care of this. We're from Kansas City. Literally.
So a wave could come up here and literally just wash you right out.
Well, if I may, I'm sure Chief and his guys and myself, we've been conscious of it ever since you guys called to come out. Because whenever I come out here, I think, look at the tide book, carry one with me constantly. Humboldt Bay tide tables, 1996, a little worn, but still good. These fellas look at it the same manner.
Yeah.
And people don't understand that this tide will change on them. It changes the whole characteristic of this ocean.
Look at the size of these waves just right here.
Rainbow in the mist.
Yeah.
Here,
Hard to
as
get
it
your
breaks.
big toe wet. I'm serious, all kidding aside. I've stood right here and look at them like there.
That high up?
Well, not that high. I mean, you stretched it a little, Huell.
Well, I'm trying. It's pretty dramatic. I'm just trying to add to it here.
Yeah, it's a very, very fascinating place.
Let's talk to these people over here. What are y'all doing out here today?
Just coming out to the point.
Have you been out here before?
Oh yeah, we live here in Fairhaven.
So you know about this jetty?
Oh yeah, quite a bit.
Now, have you ever been out here when a wave has come up?
Yeah, we was standing out there one day and a sleeper wave came over and knocked us all down.
Really?
So, yeah, you really have to respect this area.
It knocked you down?
Knocked us down
On a day like this?
on a day like this. So we don't go all the way to the very tip of it anymore.
So you've gained a newfound respect for it.
Yes, I have.
You were out here when that happened?
Yes, I was. Actually skinned our knees and our elbows.
What were you holding on to? Were you afraid you were going to be swept off?
Actually, it just pushed us really fast, and before you know it, I mean, you turn around and you see a big old wall of water, and next thing you're kissing the cement.
So in a way, the fact that it's such a beautiful day really is deceiving, isn't it?
No, it's not deceiving at all. Chief and I, we got together and ordered this all for you.
Ah.
Certainly, the U.S. Coast Guard and City of Eureka here and ex-Corps of Engineers, we know when to lay on the butter, you know.
But this does not give an idea of what fury is out here.
No, absolutely not. It's breathtaking, and people will come, old-timers especially, when the surf's up and the wind is right carrying it in. People come just to look at it. They've been here all their lives. Never see enough of it.
Really?
Yep.
Well, maybe these newfangled things maybe they'll save the jetty this time. Maybe this works.
They're doing a good job. Just looking back 20 years, they're doing a good job.
Our last stop on this adventure took us to the desert, to the extreme northwest corner of Imperial County. Now, we were there to look at rocks that used to be in the water, because for about 900 years, from 700 to 1600 AD, this whole area was a big lake. Of course, it's dry as a bone now, but at one time it was wet and home to Native Americans who made good and very creative use of the rocks. What is amazing about this lake bed is that there's this remnant right here of human activity here when the lake was here. Tell us about that.
This is how the people partially earned their living. They had been valley dwellers, and when the lake arose, it forced them out of the valley onto the mesas up above. And then somewhere along the line, they began experimenting to catch all the fish. But you see, with the slope here, it would be extremely difficult to spear a fish or to catch him with a net or even with a hook and line. So somewhere they began experimenting with these weirs. With
these what?
With the weirs, with the fish traps.
Fish traps.
And there are only 3 places in the world where these are actually made. And there are no place in the world where they're made more than right here. In this one little area that we see, there are 318 of them.
Really?
Really.
Show us how they work, because this is amazing right here.
Oh, they would take boulders, and you see there are plenty around to pick from, and instead of just willy-nilly picking up a boulder, bringing it in, putting it in place, and then go getting another one, putting that in place, they would stockpile until they had a mound of boulders, and then select them, and they would make the traps in the shape of a V.
Show us how this works.
Well, here's the short arm on the north side, and the very long arm on the south. Now, we get our wind coming in from this way most of the time. So this would act as sort of a breakwater for the water on the inside. They would leave this opening with a large boulder off to the side. And then a group would go out into the water about 20 feet, 30 feet, and beat the water. And there were lots of very skittish fish here in the lake, especially the mullet. The mullet was a kind of a bottom fish, so it was swimming in the shallow waters. And beating the water would scare them, and they would look for a place to hide, and they'd come scooting in through this opening, and then they would drop the boulder in place so they couldn't escape. Then they would net out the fish and put them in a holding tank until they were through for the day, and then carry the catch on back to their camps.
So the Indians would be down here beating on the water. The fish would be swimming away and come in here, and then what? They would put a big rock right here and capture them in here.
Yes.
And that was their fish trap.
That was their fish trap.
And there are 318 of them here?
Right here in this half section of the lake.
Where are some more of them?
You follow right along the edge of the lake where we're standing right now, and follow the same contour, and you're going to come across one after another, after another, after another.
Okay, let's look. There's one right there.
There's one. It's only about 20 feet apart.
So here is another fish trap right here, just like the other one, with the opening right here at the end. And you can actually see the trap that goes out here. And here's another one down here. Look at this one, Louis. This one is still very much intact. And here, look at this one. This is the best one we've seen so far. You really get the idea here of the way the Indians would have fixed these rocks to catch the fish.
And this is on a little bit lower ground, so they had to build it up a little bit more. So there are 2 and 3 stones on top of one another. But then
And these just go on and on and on.
right along the same contour.
What is so interesting about this is if you didn't know what to look for, you'd walk right by it. But once you know what to look for, here it is. Here are the rocks, all lined up. This is the edge of the fish trap. There's the opening right there. And there is the other side of the fish trap right here. And it forms a trap right here. This is an unbelievable part of our human history here in California.
It is, and what we want to do when things get a little bit better is to turn this into an archaeological park with an information center and have nature trails coming through here with signs and kiosks to tell people exactly what it is they got.
So there they are, some of our state's most interesting rocks in the water. Some well known, others rather obscure, but all of them rich in history and fine examples of California's gold. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and I sure hope you enjoyed this adventure. If you'd like to see it again or share it with your family or friends, all you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727 and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.